Well, the study of what appear to be esoteric problems is a good way to approach science. And it's based on the notion that if you kind of understand nature and look at basic issues, you have a kind of confidence of faith that in time it's going to lead to something useful. Because you understand natural processes well enough, you'll see applications if you're kind of tuned that way. Now, medical research and medical science is by its very nature applied. You're always looking for something that will prevent disease or ameliorate it, cures, treatments, preventions. And as a consequence, but the whole basis of studying the whole reason for studying basic science is that it will give you insights that lead to practical application. And my experience in medical research has been exactly that. When we started on this work on the inherited difference, I had no idea it would lead to the discovery of the hepatitis B virus, because that's an unusual way to approach the discovery of a virus. But what I was sure of is that we'd find something important, but I didn't know what it was. So there are many connections between medical research issues and the sort of things that we do in astrobiology. For example, one of the most amazing findings of biology in the past, well, few decades, is the incredible amount of conservation of the genome. Okay, so the genome is what we have, for current use, and but it's the source of variation in humans and in any species for that matter. It's the variation that is then responds to the changes in the environment which lead to evolutionary change. So we carry within our genes the occasional mutation, but also the genes that we've received from our ancestors. Now those are the ones that are available to use in the future when there's a change in the environment and you require a new what's the right term? A new kind of genetic capability. It's not new; it's already present. Would be available for changes that require new selection pressures, that impose new selection pressures. That's really interesting. That means we look to the past to look to the past to use in the future, and it gets this kind of notion that you have your history inside you, and you use that in the future. I mean, as a population, not on a way an individual too. Now that's okay. So what we want to know is learn about the past, about the genomes of the past. Well, that's what you do in astrobiology, and this particularly looking at these very early organisms like archaea. And what is of growing interest is looking at viruses, which are even much more common than bacteria or archaea, and represent the largest single living unit are viruses, because when you have viruses in a cell, there are many more viruses than there are cells. So it focuses attention on prior uses of the genes that we currently have. Now, one of the reasons that gene therapy hasn't been very successful, there's some circumstances where it has been useful, but they're not as common as one had hoped. And part of it is that it starts with the notion that genes have single functions, and that's emphasized by the fact that when they're given names, they're often given names indicating, in effect, the first function that was found. But they have other functions that weren't found first. And those functions often reflect what was going on in earlier species. Well, that's what you study in astrobiology. So you can look for similar functions. And the availability of the genome, where you can rack up all these sequences in one table, essentially, and then make comparisons, gives you this enormous power. By the way, that's another important kind of inductive research, because in addition to testing hypotheses with the data, you know, you have an organism and you want to find similarities with another. You can also look for similarities that you hadn't, that you can generate hypotheses looking at that database. That again is kind of the inductive phase of using an assembly of data of that nature. Well, there are other things that you could think of. For example, mineralization. You know, that's a big interest to dentists and to people, orthopedists, people interested in bone formation, various of the problems with calcification as you grow older and so forth. Well, in astrobiology, we study, you know, the origins of calcification. And to be able to look at that from its very beginning gives you insights that you couldn't possibly get and the other way. Another area, and just pick a few specific ones, as there are many others, is the study of biofilms. Now, there are these bacterial masses or bacterial mats that are studied in astrobiology, where they were a form of organized life that preceded flowering plants. They were common in the Cretaceous and before that. And there are some parts of the world they exist now in large numbers. A study of those will help with an understanding of the biofilms, which are of great interest in medicine, because if you get a biofilm type infection, it's very difficult to treat. Particularly, they form on, on prostheses inside the body and foreign bodies, and like heart valves, and they're extraordinarily difficult. It's not uncommonly the cause of death in people who have had replaced valves. There are numerous examples. In fact, when I sit and listen to these astrobiology sessions, I usually can think of something where it would apply to medical research. So, in a way, having a medical training is a pretty good preparation for doing astrobiology, although there aren't many medical doctors in the field. First of all, you have these insights about how it can be applied in medicine. And secondly, medical training is a very broad training in biology, which has the further advantage you really feel about your subject material. That is, you have this relation with your patients on a human level, and you kind of understand humans, I suppose, better than we do other experimental, what are considered as sort of model animals or experimental animals.